Welcome back. Today I'm going to try to solve some puzzles over on chess.com. In my last puzzle solving video, I only made it through 3 puzzles in my entire session. Hopefully I can do better than that today, although I try to keep in mind that my goal here is to get them right and to understand what's going on rather than to get a lot of them and increase my rating a lot. Obviously, the first thing that we look for is checks, captures, and threats. Here I have a check right there. That's not the only check. I have a check with the knight. Are those my only 2 checks? I think they are. Okay, I'm just going to examine both of those, and then if neither of those work, then we'll look for captures. I mean, there's a capture right there. It's a free knight. But let's see what happens in the event of this check. I think in the event of that check, the king comes out and is threatening my rook. But then I could check again on e7, and it would be protected by the knight. Then the king would have to go back where it is, but then it would kind of stop there, wouldn't it? Just to be sure. I have the check. King comes out. I probably need to move my rook at that point. I could check again, but then I would lose the rook. So I don't think that's it. If it comes out, I could also check again down in the corner, but then again, I would lose my rook. So I don't think it's the rook check on e8. What about the knight check on e7? In that case, the king has multiple options to get out. Now, if it went to f8 or h8, I could return here to g6 and check again, but then the bishop could capture and my opponent's just up a rook and 2 knights for my rook. Although I can take that, but they'll still be up a piece. And they have a pawn that's getting very close to promotion. And that pawn is currently protected by the knight. What about the check here? When the king comes out, I move my rook over to c8 to get behind the pawn. I still can't take it though. Then they can take this knight, and I could take back with the pawn, which would be a check. King could take there, but then I couldn't follow up with a check here because of that knight. It looks pretty rough. Those don't work. What about just taking the knight? In that case, I think they take mine, and I take back. So it might not be a check or a capture because I can't find a positive outcome of either one of those options. What else is there? There is the threat, I guess, is that a threat pushing this pawn forward? Because then they get the knight for free. Then I could check with the pawn, but then they can take that too, and then I can't check with the rook at all. So there's probably something I'm missing about one of the checks because I don't see anything else. I'm going to go back to the rook check. It's the most forcing. In that case, the opponent only has one legal move, and it is to go to f7. And then my most forcing follow-up to that is to check on e7, which forces the king back where it is, but then my rook's on e7. Does that help in some way? I can still move it over to get behind the pawn, but the pawn is still protected at that point. Or could I force a draw then? Is that what the answer is? The king comes out, I check, and you know what? It doesn't have to go back then. It could come forward. I don't know what I would do if it went forward. If it went forward, I could check again. Then if it went back, I could check again. And if it went back, I could check again. I could just keep checking. Is that the answer here, to force a continuous checking situation since I can't win down here? It looks like I'm about to lose if I don't stalemate them. But I could be wrong, and that's going to happen, especially at this level. I'm probably playing a little bit above my level when it comes to puzzles. I'm going to check with the rook on e8. If that's wrong, we'll find out why, and if the next move is wrong, and so on. Oh, that was right, and it did move forward. Wait, I don't just have this follow-up. I have this follow-up. Okay. See, I didn't see that earlier, but that looks like checkmate, right? Once I go there, then the king doesn't have any legal moves. Okay, it was a mate in 2. I spent way too much time on that after seeing that check as my first move, and then I did not see that I could slide over behind it protected by the knight. The theme was passed pawns. I will allow it this time, but yeah, I spent 6 minutes on that puzzle. Okay, again, should get it right rather than worrying about the time or the score. Next puzzle. I am playing with the black pieces. Okay, it's a little confusing when the other color is closer to me because I have 3 whole empty ranks down here, and the only piece on my half of the board is a white pawn, but that white pawn's going this way. Well, the capture doesn't look like a good idea, does it? Or does it? The reason I was about to say it's not a good idea is because once they retake, their pawn's only 3 squares from promotion. But my pawn's only 3 squares from promotion too, and it's going to be my turn, and when I promote, their king's going to be in the line of fire. So let's follow that out. The checks, there's only one check here, I think, and it doesn't look good at all. I think that would just fail to any number of moves here, and then I don't know that I would be able to get my pawn promoted because their king could, well, maybe not there, but their king could still get in front of it, perhaps. Or certainly they would still have a rook to be able to do it. So I'm skipping that check and I'm going to captures. If I capture and they take back, which let's assume that they would, I don't think anything else makes sense, because if they don't, I'm probably going to take their pawn, right? Okay, so let's assume they will take back with their king, and then I will march my pawn forward at that point. When they go forward, I go forward, and they go forward, then when I promote, they'll be in check. They'll have to get out of check, and they won't have promoted yet. I think that's the answer. It doesn't make sense to push the pawn first, because then they take my rook and I'm not going to promote. And they are. So let's take the rook. Okay, pawn. Oh, see, they didn't move their pawn. They moved their king, trying to get close to it. So I think I need to move my king, because if I move the pawn again, they get next to it. And then when I move my king, they get in front of it. And I can't get it out of there, and this pawn promotes. So I think I have to move my king, which would allow them to get beside it. But then I could push again, and if they got beside it, I could push again, and they can't get in front of it. So I'm going to move my king forward to e3. Then my pawn. Then my king. And then I promote. Oh wow, I got 13 points for that. I thought that took a while. There is no theme listed. For all the puzzles we've seen with themes of passed pawns that didn't even have passed pawns in the puzzle at all, or where the passed pawn wasn't relevant at all, this one didn't have the theme of passed pawns. Wow, I will add passed pawns. I will add promotion. I know you can't see the drop-down menu. I don't know why that is, but there is one there, and I'm using it to add themes. It says that puzzle is rated 2157. Okay, well, I feel good about that one. I did it in a pretty decent amount of time. Next. Well, this is a highly unusual situation with the bishop down there behind the king. Shouldn't they have taken it? I don't know. I think they should have taken it. I have a safe check here, and I have a safe check here, both of which protect the bishop and put the king in check. Is there a difference? Yes, I think there's a difference. If I check on f7, king runs, and I don't have a safe follow-up check at that point, plus the king could then go hide over in that corner. If I check here, where does the king go? That's checkmate, isn't it? Because my queen will be guarding the bishop, and my bishop's guarding that square, and my queen's guarding that square, and they can't. I don't think they can block or capture there. Well, that took me a long time, but that puzzle was rated over 2,000. It was a made-in-one puzzle. The reason it took me a while, obviously, is because there were 2 checks, and I wanted to explain it not only for your benefit, but for my benefit. If I say it out loud, then it helps to settle it in my brain. I forgot how many that is. I'm going to keep going until my timer says 30 minutes or so. That's usually the limit I place on myself. After that point, my brain begins to falter. Okay, do have some checks. I think I have 3 checks. This one I don't think is good because the king captures and I don't have a good follow-up to that. And I'm, as you can see, way down on material. I have a bishop and a queen. My opponent has that, plus another bishop, plus 2 rooks. And then I'm up a handful of pawns here. So there's a check, but that one is even worse than taking the pawn, I think, because of how many different ways they could capture me. What about the check here on d7? Queen to d7 check. They could just take the pawn. Other ways to get out of check would be to take with the rook, but I don't think that's good because I would just take it back and be protected by the pawn and be protecting the pawn, and that would be mate. So they won't block with the rook, I'm pretty sure. Other options there are to take the pawn or to move behind the rooks. Moving behind the rooks is bad because then I would have checkmate on g7. So that would basically force them to take the pawn. I don't know if that's good. Once they took the pawn, I could check here on g7 with my queen protected by my bishop. Cut off these squares. My pawn's cutting off that one. My queen also would be cutting off these. My bishop cutting off those. So they would be forced over to e6. Then I could check by capturing on g6, but then I would have given up a pawn and got one of theirs. They would have multiple options to get out of check at that point. What is the answer? Let's see. I'm probably missing something just like I did on that first puzzle that was a mate in 2, because they can take the pawn, right? They can. Okay, well maybe I shouldn't bring my queen over to check then at that point. Maybe I should check with the bishop at that point, protected by my queen. But then that would allow them only one way out, which would be to g5. And then I come back here and that's mate. Okay, that's what I missed, is that I didn't need to put my queen there. I could put my bishop there on g7. Okay, check. We've already established that if they move the rook up, I have very close to mate. I would take it, they would have to go back to g8, and then I would move over to g7, and that would be mate. And we've established that if they went to g8 first, then I would have mate on g7. So they would take the pawn. I would follow with the bishop check, which they can't block or capture. So my queen's cutting off all of that. My bishop's hitting these, my queen's hitting these. So they would be forced to g5. And then when I come back here, protected by my pawn, and of course the bishop from down there on g7 would also be guarding here, and my queen would be cutting off all of those. So I think that's mate. Let's try it. Okay, I know I only got 5 points for it because it took a while. It says I should have found it in 39 seconds. I'm probably not going to find those in 39 seconds, either on the board or in puzzles, not for a while, but I found it. But yeah, at that point, on the first look through, I should have realized that either my queen or my bishop could have gone to g7, and I should have looked at both of them. That one was definitely better. All right. I am in check. Okay, I don't like the puzzles that start off with me in check, because I have to figure out a way out of check. In this case, I think the obvious answer is to capture the queen, right? Because, I mean, I have 4 other ways to get out of check, right? I can get out of check 4 other ways, but in all of those ways, I think they take my queen, and then they have a queen, stopping my 2 pawns while their other 2 pawns march down, not to mention keeping my king down here. So I think it has to be taking the queen. Can we assume that they would take that pawn at that point, and then I will shove my h-pawn forward? If they move theirs, I've got to get in front of it with my king. I don't have to capture it. I just have to get in front of it, I think. And then my pawn wins. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Now, let's see. If I move my pawn first, and they move, and I move, and they move, I move, then they have to bring their king, and then I can move my pawn again. And they have to bring their king, and I can move my pawn again. So I think it's okay for me to move my pawn first. If I move my pawn first and they come after my pawn, I don't think they can catch it. No, they can't catch it, so they're going to try to move with their pawn. But I don't think I have to move my king first. Or do I? Let's think about this. What if they bring their king first and come down to get in front of their pawn? I don't know, maybe this way. And then I advance, and then they come down. Yeah, I'm going to promote first, so it's got to be this. Okay, they did bring their king first. Okay, I'm glad I thought of that. Now, again, the question is, if I move and they come, which way are they going to go? Because all they have to do, they don't have to get their king in front of their pawn. They just have to keep their king where it's cutting off squares on that D file, so I can't get my king there. So the question is, do I move my pawn again, or do I need to get my king there now? Because if I move my pawn and they come forward, am I too late at that point? I am too late at that point. So I think I need to move my king now. Can they beat me to getting in front of that pawn? I don't think it matters which one of these they go to at that point. I move over one, then they can't come here. So they would have to go to c6, and then I can get in front of it. Okay, so I think I need to move my king first. I don't think it... Does it matter which one of these I go to? We're about to find out. Well, it wasn't that one. Okay, well, we found out. All right. Oh, there were no themes on that puzzle, and no way to add a theme, apparently. Or maybe you have to pass the puzzle to add a theme. All right, let's just assume it was this. No, it was moving my pawn again. Really? Okay. Well, we already determined they can't catch it. Okay, sorry. I thought the whole reason they put their king here was to get in front of, to keep my king from getting in front of their pawn. The theme was simple? No. Let's go back to the analysis board. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, you had to pass it in order to see the themes or edit them. Okay. Well, we figured this part out when we took their queen. We figured this part out just by calculation. But once they did that, the question, okay, it says my second best move was king to f7, but that results in a draw. Okay. But my question is, once I do this, why don't they go forward? You see that, right? Their best move was not to chase my pawn. Their best move was to push their pawn or their king. But they're still at a disadvantage. So if they push their pawn, then I have to come. And yeah, it didn't matter which one of those I went to. But backing up, I thought I calculated that if they pushed their king now, that I couldn't get in front of their pawn. Oh, because if they push their king, then I'm going to promote before they do. Okay. All right. But you saw that in the puzzle, the opponent did not play its best moves. It went for my pawn when that wasn't its best moves. We back up. Here, when I did play h4, yeah, d5 is the best move. It's changed from what it said the previous time, but actually it says it's the same for it to go here. And once it's gone there, it actually really doesn't matter what the king does at this point. It says it's 31 either way. That's not what it said the first time. But anyway, well, I misunderstood that or miscounted. I think what I was worried about once their king came forward that I wouldn't be able to get in front of the pawn. If we back up, let's go to here. Okay, I took this and then I said that was fine. But okay, at this point, I thought if I push the pawn and their king comes forward, then it's too late. I can't get in front of the pawn. The problem though is that then I'm only 3 squares from promotion and they're still 4 squares from promotion. Okay, got it. So let's push the pawn and then then it's just pushing the pawn. Okay. I still have a higher score than I started with, right? I think I started at 1952. I could be wrong about that. Right, this queen I think has just captured something here. Let's see, do I have checks? I do. That's not a good one. I think their knight would take it. I also have this check, which their knight could just take it or their king. If their king took, I would have a follow-up. I'm guessing it's not one of those. I'm guessing it's something to do with trapping the queen. Is it rook to c8 or c1? Rook a to c1? I should finish looking at my checks before I worry about chasing the queen. I was about to go down that rabbit hole, but let me start with this check, which I didn't see right at first, but queen to e6 check only allows the king one legal move. No, wait, my bishop's covering that square. Is this mate? No, it's not mate because the knight has to block because my rook's cutting off those squares and my bishop's cutting off these squares and my queen would be hitting this. So I think the knight has to block. Okay, I think we don't have to worry about chasing the queen. Knights don't move that way, do they? Once the knight blocks with a single move here, I am having arrow difficulties, but yeah, the knight's going to block there on e7, and then I'll take it, and that's mate. Unless I'm drastically miscalculating something because of my bishop. Well, I should have seen that in 16 seconds, it says, but there is no theme listed. Let's say mate in 2. But I think I only got 7 points off on that last puzzle that I missed. But is that because I got the first move right? I think it was the second move that I took the queen and then moved the pawn, so I got 2 moves right and failed on the third move. So I just lost 7 points for it. But it looks like I'm still 2 points lower than the previous spot. So that's my goal here, I think, is I want to be above that point before I end, because it's about 25 minutes on my end. Oh, they're attacking my queen. Okay. And check over here. Is that mate? Again? Wait, a mate? Is this mate in 1? I'm so hesitant to play that because it looks like it can't be mate in 1, but it was mate in 1. Oh, the rating is pending. And it probably won't be that high because it says this has an 88% pass rate. Suggest theme, mate in 1. Yeah, I'm guessing this one will go down, but because for a high-rated puzzle, if it was in the actual 2000 range, you think you see a mate in 1 and then you hesitate because you're used to the puzzles being more complex. So it's going to be rare. I'm going to get those in 7 seconds. I'll get them in 7 seconds when I know they're low-rated, like when I do Puzzle Rush Survival and you know the first puzzle's rated 100. You play those really quickly, but at this rating range, I am not going to play them that quickly. I do have a check. It is a rook down here to a1. In that case, I think there's only one legal move. And then I have a check here, which they could block with the pawn. Would that be the only way out of that check? It wouldn't be the only way out of that check. That queen diagonal is pretty, isn't it? And that's a safe square over there in h4. Okay, but now let's start with rook to a1. Forced here. I don't see any other follow-up besides bringing the rook up, but then things get weird because you want the rook to cut off the back rank and stay there, I think. Because that way, once the king comes up here and I check on h4, if they block with the pawn, I can come in this way, and that's a check, down on h2. If they don't block with the pawn, but like, let's say if I go here, they came here, and I checked on h4, and they came forward or something, then I could bring the rook around behind it, or if I checked on h4 and they went sideways, then I could check down here and they'd have to come up and it starts getting weird. So there's a lot of options there, but what's going on down here? Wait, am I in check? Oh, I'm not in check, but I am about to be checkmated. It looks like I'm getting really close to being checkmated. So I need to be careful. Are any of these pieces hanging? They are not. And also nothing's pinned. That's important because I might need to move this knight here a little bit. For example, if I check, they come forward, I check on h4. And if the king went that way, I could check with the knight on f4, which would force the king either up or over, and then bringing my queen down would kind of seal the deal maybe. Okay, I'm going to try rook to a1. Okay, that was right. Then this has to be. There's nothing else that makes sense, I don't think. My queen can't get around there any other way. My knight check is not good right now because That's not where knights go. So it's got to be h4, I'm pretty sure. We're about to find out. Okay, they blocked with the pawn. Well, in that case, I think queen to h2 is the answer, is it not? I think it is. But in that case, then the king has two options, neither of which allow checking by the knight. Now, if it chose the e file, e3, then of course I could pick off this pawn with check. Their queen might block. I don't know. It might. But if they chose the f file, I suppose then I could check with the rook, or either one of those, I could check with the rook. Okay. There's also this. But if I play rook to a2, the king gets out and I don't have a follow-up check. So I think it's got to be the queen to h2. Okay, it did come forward. Now there is the question. Is it the rook? Is it the queen? Pretty sure it's not the queen to h5 because of where their queen is located. So queen to h1, rook to f1. Pretty sure it's not this knight because of where the pawn is. So, but their king is getting pretty close to being cut off. Let's say that I check with the rook. My queen's cutting off all of this. The rook would be hitting all of that. And of course, my pawn's hitting that one. So they would only have two options at that point. If they went to e3, I'd be getting pretty close to mate, but they could block with their queen. Oh, no. Right here, I'm skewering their queen. That might be one of the answers here, because I'm not skewering their queen. If I go to queen to h1 and they move there, then what? Okay, so I'm going to put my rook on f1, and fingers crossed. Oh, it ended there. Trapped piece was the theme of this puzzle. The queen is trapped? That's the theme? Oh my goodness, I had no idea. Until that last move, you saw that, right? I'm going to go to the analysis board to the end. I don't care about all the rest of that stuff. I figured it out. Did my internet quit? No, it just hiccuped. Okay. Well, let's go to the end there. That was the end of the puzzle. Their best move is king to g4. Okay, now it says if they went to e3, then I would check again with my rook. I would not take the queen. They would have to come back, and then my queen over here to e2 would be mate. Yeah, I guess it would. Okay. But if they went to g4, which is their best move, then it would be my move to take the queen. Okay. Maybe it should have continued. Like if it had gone here, I would have been really tempted to take the queen, but my best move by far would be to check again, because now there's only one legal move, and then that's mate. Yeah, I think the puzzle should have continued just a little bit, but it probably shouldn't have played the worst move. Do I have multiple moves if it goes here? Oh, I do. That's the problem, because I can still check queen to e2, and it's almost as good as taking the queen. Okay, that's why it didn't continue. Got it. And now I'm over 30 minutes on my end. Obviously, it'll be shorter on your end due to editing because there are gaps, and I cut those out for your benefit. I made some progress. I missed one puzzle, but I think we understood the one that we missed. I'm going to hover over it just to see which one it was. It was the one with the pawns. I now understand why I missed that one, and I'll get it right next time. Thank you for spending your time here. Hopefully you're also getting better at chess, and I'll see you next time.